There we go.
And we've still got a few minutes before official start time.
So we just need Stuart, don't we?
No, Stuart's not coming.
Oh, right.
He too is having technical issues with computers, and
Right.
he's not feeling terribly well. So we do have a video that he's shared with Tyson, and Tyson will show that at the appropriate point.
Okay. Right.
Yes, I apparently around his place it's still copper cables and there is a thunderstorm or something.
Yeah.
So he's in danger of losing his signals. So he sent a recording instead.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, I should perhaps mention that there are storms in the vicinity where I am in Oxford. It's okay at the moment, and my fingers are crossed. But if I suddenly vanish, it is not because I have taken umbrage. It is because the gods have intervened.
How do you know? How do you know?
There's always something, isn't there?
It's
What
okay
a
at the
lovely
moment.
room. What a lovely room you have there. Not you. Sorry. Forget it. Miss Quill.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It
Yes,
looks
my
lovely.
pictures.
It's the
Yes.
only. It's the only room I can tell.
Hello, Zach.
It's totally crammed with absolutely everything,
Yeah,
tottering piles of.
but
I
lots of
think
pictures.
Kay Walter is on. Are you on, Kay?
She is.
She's a member of the board of our North American Ruskin Society.
I'm here, Jim. Thank you.
Hi, Kay. Good to see you.
Hello, Kay.
She's in Arkansas.
Right. What time zone is that?
I think it's Central.
Central, yes.
Diana, I wanted to ask you, I was looking up things that you've published on Mr. Ruskin today. Flores Clavigera and the Crisis of Victorian Liberalism. Are you the author or the editor of that?
Neither.
You're neither. You have nothing to do with it.
No, that's not me.
Well, I'm sorry. I guess I've got that one
I
wrong.
did do a selected edition of Flores Clavigera.
Yes, I know that, and I have used that. That's a very nice edition.
Thank you. But that is as far as my Flores work has gone, really. Well, I've published a couple of essays, but I don't think any of them has had that title.
And were you associated with Ruskin's Mythic Queen?
Well, that's Sharon Weltman.
Yes, right.
And we have many conversations, and so only in that sense, but that is Sharon's book.
That's Sharon's book, okay.
Yeah.
But you are the author of Ruskin and the Dawn of the Modern.
Yes, well, that's a collection of essays, and I'm the editor.
Okay.
Dinah, Sharon is speaking at the Ruskin in America conference.
Good.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
She was in Oxford over the summer, and it was a real pleasure to see her. She's in very good form, working very hard in her new role, but enjoying it, I think.
That's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know Virginia Anderson?
No.
She's a curator from the Boston Fine Arts. Yeah, so she's doing a talk on the American pre-Raphaelites.
Yeah.
Part of the conference.
Yeah.
Whoop, there's Sarah.
That's okay, Gabe. I've been letting people in.
Okay.
There's Sarah.
Tyson, can we put the plaque up as the thing people see when they log on?
Got it.
Robert, were you able to open your plaque?
Yes.
Oh.
Is it
It looks
okay?
It looks just like that.
Excellent. That's
wonderful.
what it's supposed to look like.
I have it behind me.
This
But
is
I, because I'm not in the usual room, I'm all a bit discombobulated, but still, here we are. I have it behind me.
well,
Very handsome. Very
this is
handsome.
this is it before it crossed the waters.
Yes, and yeah, and passed through customs.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, I don't know who the fool on the right is, but her coma we do recognize.
Actually, you know, I looked you up on the web. There's a lot of pictures of you on the web, and many of them are quite nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I think that one's a
Thank you.
nice one.
It
You look
is
very
nice.
clean
I like that.
too.
Yeah, he has been disparaging it. I don't think there's any reason for that. It's a nice picture.
Yeah,
It's a very good picture. Yeah.
yeah, you look very content with life.
Would that were true. Yes, yes.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. How are you? It's good to see all of you.
Hi,
Hi, Sarah. Good to see
Hello.
you.
Hello, Sarah.
hi.
Yeah, some of you I haven't seen in a very long time.
That's true. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Well, we're getting close to start time. I'll give it another couple of minutes.
Nearly there.
Jim, I know you're starting things off. Do you want me to take the plaque down when you start speaking and then and spotlight you?
Sure, you can for a moment. That's fine. I'll be brief, and I'm just going to get us right into the speakers. So our first speaker is Dinah.
Right.
So I will do a brief introduction of her, and then we can go straight to whatever she's going to say and show.
Okie dokie.
Right. There's no showing, it's just me speaking.
Well, that's fine. Well, it is straight up 2 o'clock here, which means it's straight up 7 o'clock in the UK. Shall we begin? Or do you want to wait a minute or two?
Say
I would,
begin.
Jim, yeah, I'd say wait maybe
Yeah.
another minute,
Okay.
because we have some people, I think some people had said they were coming, who are not here yet.
Okay, it's a little after 2 East Coast time, so I do think I will start. Welcome, everybody. This is Jim Spates speaking. We are assembled here today to have a wonderful, we do this every year now, and it's just a wonderful thing. The Ruskin Society of North America every year chooses someone to get a Ruskin Lifetime Achievement Award. And our recipient this year is Robert Hewison, whom anybody who knows anything much about Ruskin certainly knows about Robert Hewison and the wonderful work that he's done on Mr. Ruskin over indeed decades. His influence on the field and on all of us who are going to participate today is enormous. We are lucky to have had his mind and his work and his pen and his thoughts for so long, and this is a way to thank him for all the effort he's done on Mr. Ruskin's behalf. So the way in which this is going to work today is that whenever the Ruskin Society of North America chooses a recipient, and that recipient says that they will be happy to accept the award, and in this case, Robert has done so, and enthusiastically, I might add, we ask that recipient to choose 3 or 4 speakers, people who can say something about him and his time and his work on Ruskin, people who know him fairly well. So Robert has done that with me. We've had a number of email conversations over the months intervening. And so we're going to have four 4 people paying 5-minute, no more than 5 minutes. I told them if more than 5 minutes, we just cut them off. But 5-minute tributes to Robert and his time, their knowledge of him as a great Ruskin scholar, which indeed he is. And those 4 people are going to be Dinah Birch, Howard Hull, Stu Eagles. Stu Eagles was also chosen and said yes, but he has had some technical difficulties with his computer today, so he won't be with us. But we have a video that he sent Tyson Gaskell, who's acting as our tech help today. And so we will show that at the appropriate time. And finally, Sarah Quill at the end. And then Robert will have a chance to talk about all 4 speakers and how they got everything wrong after they've had their say. So let's begin first with Dinah Birch. Everybody again who knows Ruskin knows something about Dinah Birch and her work. She is the editor of a very influential collection, Ruskin and the Dawn of the Modern. She has done a wonderful collection of Ruskin's Fors Clavigera essays. I've worked quite a bit on Fors Clavigera, and I have to say that Dinah's book is just terrific. So we have a lot of wonderful Ruskin scholars today. So we'll begin with Dinah, and you just give us your thoughts about your time and relationship with Robert.
Thank you, Jim. It's a real pleasure and also an honor to be able to celebrate Robert Hewison and his enduring contribution to Ruskin studies this evening. So I've been thinking about what I want to say, and I began by compiling a list of all that Robert has done to deepen our understanding of Ruskin over the years, including his work on Ruskin's relations with Oxford and with Venice, his work as an editor, as a curator of exhibitions, as an eloquent voice in conferences, seminars, and broadcasts, as chair of the Ruskin Today organization. And in fact, my list grew and grew until it would have occupied the whole of my allotted 5 minutes. In personal terms, Robert has been an anchor and an inspiration for my own work on Ruskin since I first met him in Oxford in the mid-1970s. And like many of those who've devoted time and thought to Ruskin's ideas, I found The Argument of the Eye to be a seminal reference point for my first faltering attempts to find a way into those daunting 39 volumes. And Robert has continued to occupy that position, inspiration and guide throughout the half-century that I have known him. Yes, Robert, it really is that long. So instead of reciting a list, I want to focus on what has made the nature of his multiple presence in contemporary Ruskin studies so foundational. And to do that, I need firstly to refer to his work outside his interest in Ruskin, for Robert is, of course, an important cultural historian, both in terms of his publications and his influential interventions in wider debates. Culture, politics, art, those are not just issues of intellectual or historical interest for Robert. They are of immediate and pressing concern, and they demand our serious engagement. And that conviction is what I would identify as the central driver of Robert's essential presence in Ruskin scholarship. From the days of that legendary 1969 conference in Brantwood, Robert has been foremost among those who've brought Ruskin's thought to life, not as an object of hagiographical reverence, but as a focus of ideas that continue to challenge and shape our own sense of responsibility towards our shared culture. Robert has never been blind to what might make Ruskin seem alien to academic orthodoxy, for there's no pretending that Ruskin is easily assimilated into the codes of values that many now take for granted. But that challenge is what makes Ruskin continue to matter, always provoking, always stimulating, always fertile. And the second quality I point to in characterizing what Robert has done for the Ruskin community is his extraordinary generosity. I can vouch for that in my own experience, for Robert has always been there when I needed encouragement or guidance, which has been often. But that's been true for so many generations of students, colleagues, young Ruskin scholars, anyone with a genuine interest in Ruskin's thought. And that hasn't just been a matter of cheering people on, though that is part of what I'm describing. It's also had to do with Robert's high and exacting standards as a researcher and scholar. Woolly-minded enthusiasm is not enough. Real knowledge, facts, and research underpin Robert's work for Ruskin. Our advocation needs to rest on steady foundations, and Robert has shown us over and over again what that means in practice. And he is still showing us. I'm all too aware that I'm sounding a bit as though I'm giving a sort of memorial tribute, which is not at all what I intend, because Robert remains actively central to the world of Ruskin studies, and may that continue for many years to come. My 5 minutes is up, so I'll end briefly with what really needs to be said. Thank you, Robert. We owe you, and we know it, and we're grateful. Thank you.
And thank you. That was a lovely, lovely tribute. Thank you very much, Dinah. It's very special to have your thoughts because you're such a fine Ruskin scholar in your own right. Thank you so much for sharing these thoughts with us. Good. So I think we'll move on to our second person now. Howard Hull. Howard is the curator at Brantwood, as I think all of us know. Many of us have been there numbers of times. He is a dear friend to all of us, deeply generous and extremely enthusiastic about Ruskin, his life and his work. And with Pamela, his wife, they have done a wonderful job of making Brantwood into a national treasure, a national treasure of the UK and indeed the cultural world. He was also specified by Robert as someone he would like to have say a few words tonight. So we have Howard with us. He's on the screen now. And so Howard, we'll turn it over to you, and you may say what you have to say about Professor Hewison and his wonderful work.
Thank you, Jim, and hello, Robert. And it's wonderful to be able to give this tribute to you. You know, you have needed a particularly broad set of shoulders, it seems to me, because you were there in the Ruskin revival right at the very beginning. You were pretty much one of those who set it alight in 1969. And pretty well all of us have stood on your shoulders in the process of going forward with it. I want to speak a little bit about the fact that you have been an enormous force behind the scenes in the Ruskin world, as well as a very public figure through your writing, your scholarship, and your appearances in media. But behind that, you have done something which I know is very Ruskinian and would be very much applauded by Ruskin himself, and that is that you have been there to engineer the on-the-ground realities of living a Ruskin world and trying to create a Ruskin world, and to honor in places like Brantwood the things that Ruskin stood for. You've been a trustee of Brantwood for the entire time that I have been at Brantwood, and that is since 1996. I don't want to make you feel old, but you were already in the Ruskin world for 27 years before I joined Brantwood, and it's a further 28 years since I've been at Brantwood. And throughout the time, those 28 years that I've enjoyed your company, I have never known a trustee or a person who could be more supportive of an individual and of a team and the effort that we've been making at Brentwood. It's more than just support in a way. It's inspiration. It's the fact that you stand for and applaud certain values, and as Dinah has really emphasized. So that's been of tremendous value to me, and much more importantly to the world at large, because Brentwood has thrived under your trusteeship. You've also been a trustee of the Ruskin Foundation. The Ruskin Foundation now has been folded into Brentwood and into the to Lancaster University. But from 1996 until 2019, 25 years, the Ruskin Foundation stood as a sort of, you gave it the wonderful term, a universal joint, to link the university and Brentwood, and the enterprise of the new library, as it was, in Lancaster. And without your intelligence, your thoughtfulness, and your masterly understanding of how universities work, as well as how independent institutions like Brentwood work, you enabled us to sort of work together. It brought us to the year 2000. I've got two pictures to share with you. I don't know if Tyson's able to get them up for me. The first will be familiar to many of you, because there, right in the center, in the dapper suit, is a young Robert Hewison, and this is in 1969. And you see Brentwood in the background there, and Jim Dearden down towards the left. But if we move to the second photograph, I've only these two to show. I just wanted you to see Robert in the year 2000, when we were celebrating the anniversary of Ruskin's death. And there's Robert on the right. And this is one of the very, very rare times in which we had a dinner at Ruskin's dining table in Brentwood. And I think it's wonderful that Robert was such, was there then for that. And of course, Dinah's referred to the magnificent exhibition that he put on at the Tate Gallery at the time, that he curated, Ruskin, Turner, and the Pre-Raphaelites. Behind the scenes, Robert has also been responsible for Ruskin Today, which Dinah referred to, and for the annual Ruskin London Lecture. He managed to twist the arm of Sovereign Films, who he had been helping to advise, to sponsor for 5 years a special lecture in London, and indeed we've got one coming up this year. I just want to conclude by saying that personally, that Robert has always been a friend, a genuine friend, and a man of immense kindness and understanding, and great humility. And I think he has nothing but admirable qualities. He's enormous fun to be with as well. And I'm afraid that it's a shame that Zoom doesn't allow you to sort of pass a bottle of wine and a glass around, quite except virtually. But and I haven't one in my hand. But here's to you, Robert. I'm so glad you got this award.
Well, thank you, Howard. Very lovely. I failed to mention that in terms of Howard and Pamela's work at Brentwood, how much they have done not only to upkeep the place and turn it into a national treasure. They have held conference after conference that has been a great success that celebrates Ruskin's ideas and work, and catalogs the gardens at Brentwood, the evolution of Ruskin's Lakeland Paradise is a recent one, and before that, The Skies Are for All, Ruskin and Climate Change. The centrality of your work, as well as Robert's, to Ruskin's ongoing reputation and importance in the world are of great significance. Thank you for these comments, much appreciated. We will now pass to Stuart Eagles. Stu Eagles is a friend to us all. He cannot be with us personally today. He said he sent me an email earlier this morning saying that his computer had gone on the fritz, and he has kindly, before that, anticipating the possibility of this, sent a short video to Tyson, which Tyson will be able to share with us. Stu is the author, as you know, and if you don't know, you should know, of a wonderful book called After Ruskin, What Was Ruskin's Influence on the World After His Own Time, which was enormously considerable and And this book details that in a way that nobody else had done before. He was also secretary of the Guild of St. George for a number of years. So Stu Eagles is one of our preeminent members of the Ruskin world. And although he cannot physically be here, even in the virtual capacity that we're all here today, he has sent this video. Tyson, if you can get the video up and running, let's do it.
Okay.
If you're watching this, then I'm afraid it's because the storm cloud of the 21st century has taken out my internet. Thunderstorms are forecast, so I've taken the precaution of recording this in advance. When Jim first approached me and asked me to speak to Robert's lifetime achievement, I have to say that my initial reaction was to say, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. What happened? In all seriousness, such are Robert's achievements that they would take most of us several lifetimes to accomplish. We're thinking of him principally in relation to Ruskin today, but there is also Robert, the theatre critic, the curator, the cultural historian. What I think we probably all recognize is the enviable clarity of thought and expression that characterize all of Robert's work. And I'm not going to talk to the argument of the eye. I feel ill-qualified to do that. So instead, I'm going to talk about Robert Hewison, E.T. Not extraterrestrial, well, not as far as I know, but exemplary teacher, because after all, that's how I got to know him. I was a third-year undergraduate at the University of Lancaster, and I signed up to Robert's excellent course that he convened in literary modernism. And the way that the Department of English worked in those days, the student could sign up to a particular group and time. And I wanted to be taught by the convener of the course. And I saw that Robert had a session available at 9 o'clock on Friday mornings. I thought that might be reasonably quiet. So what I hadn't taken account of was that the less keen students had a group and a time allotted to them. So, for example, there was a seminar in which a student merrily told Robert that E.M. Forster's novel, Howard's End, is a book about a bloke called Howard who died in the end. It wasn't difficult to shine in a group like that, but it must have been a challenge to teach. But characteristically, Robert always gave it 100% as a lecturer and a tutor. His dedication, his energy, his generosity were all remarkable. I was most impressed by the fact that he invited every student to make a face-to-face appointment with him to go through their essays, line by line, if necessary. The upholder of the highest standards, nobody will be surprised to hear that. He taught any student willing to learn how to construct a sentence, a paragraph, an argument. Fundamental stuff, but you get the basics right and everything else follows. I'm enormously grateful. I was so impressed, in fact, that when I saw a notice on a bulletin or an email that you could nominate one of your tutors for a departmental teaching prize, I put forward Robert's name. And I hadn't read the small print. And a few days later, Robert very kindly and very gently let me know that actually that was intended for junior members of staff. Oh dear. But he took it in the spirit intended and with his hallmark sense of humor. I think they should have had a prize just for Robert Hewison, because he always tailored his teaching to the personality, the needs, the strengths and weaknesses of the student. He very quickly got the measure of me. He understood that it wasn't just that I needed to be encouraged, but I needed to be pushed as well. So having helped me form the subject of my master's dissertation, which was on Dickens, Ruskin and Victorian political economy, he told me that I would be speaking a couple of months into the Ruskin seminar. Now, for the uninitiated, the Ruskin seminar involved presenting for an hour. Then there was a 15 or 20-minute break. And then there was half an hour of discussion. I mean, quite a grueling experience for a 21-year-old new postgraduate. But it was also a hugely important and formative experience for which I remain extremely grateful. And presumptuous though it may be to speak on behalf of Robert's other students, I'm confident that nobody would contradict me when I acknowledge the great debt of gratitude that we, and that I especially, owe him. There is a great deal more that could and should be said, but I've already run over my allotted time, I'm sure. So in congratulating you, Robert, if I can turn to you, and thanking you for the opportunity to speak today at what is undoubtedly a hugely well-deserved accolade, I want to say simply but profoundly, thank you.
And thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Tyson, for getting the video up and running properly. It's wonderful. We're sorry to miss Stu as actually speaking in the real world air today, but we had his spirit. That was the spirit of the man. And another great accolade, or series of accolades, to our recipient, to Robert, and his great influence not only on Stu, but on all of us. So we have one more speaker left in our list of speakers. And that is Sarah Quill. She is, as you all know, a really very widely renowned and applauded, and rightly so, photographer. And she has a wonderful book, Ruskin's Venice, The Stones Revisited, which, if you don't know it, I recommend to us all to get and pour through. It's beautiful. She's done a great job of recreating the visuals of the Venice that Ruskin knew. And so, Sarah, if you are ready, you may now take a moment to give your reflections on Robert and your time with him.
Thank you very much, Jim. And hello, Robert, and many congratulations. Could I ask Tyson, please, to put up the first slide? Thank you. Just some of Robert's books. Looking back, Robert, I realized that we first met in the mid-1970s, so that we've actually been friends for half a century. It's quite daunting when one can say that. And when Jim invited me to be one of the speakers for this tribute, I knew that your many achievements would be more than well covered, and most fluently, by Dinah, Howard and Stu. And so rather than echo their words, which with of course I agree, I thought it might be an idea to show a very few images, including one or two of Venice, before mass tourism cast its suffocating blight over the city. Next, please, Tyson. Next slide, please, Tyson. Thank you. Needless to say, actually, it's the one before this. No.
Oh,
that's right.
Sorry, folks. Can you describe it?
The second slide.
That one there?
That's
Yep.
it.
Okay.
Needless to say, most of the Ruskin-related conversations that I've had with Robert over the years have been Venice connected, and many of them have taken place in Venice itself. And when I first began to think of putting together my own book on Ruskin and Venice, the first person I talked it over with was, of course, Robert, and his enthusiasm for the project was an enormous encouragement. Next picture, please. Two indispensable books over the years have been Robert's The Argument of the Eye and Jeanne Clegg's Ruskin and Venice. And I mention Jeanne because it was she who reminded me very recently that Robert was the first person to have cracked the code of numbering on Ruskin's Venice worksheets. Next, please. A favorite Venetian square has always been Campo San Giovanni in Bragora, with the massive Gothic gritty Baudouin palace on the north side. This detailed drawing on the left from Ruskin's Bit book shows that the stylized peacock carved above the windows. There's not very much of that detail left now. Next, please. And in his description of the building and the Venetian index of stones, Ruskin remarked that when he had last seen it, the palace was occupied by a laundress. And after Ken and Jenny Jacobson's dramatic discovery at auction in 2006 of Ruskin's supposedly lost daguerreotypes, we were able to see the photographic evidence of her labors. Next, please. Moving on 150 years into the 20th century, this is a nostalgic look back at the sleepy Venice that many of us remember. This is the edicola or newsstand that was once such a feature of Campo San Giovanni de Paolo in a photograph taken on a hot day in late May 1975. Notice that even the dog is asleep. And next, please. And 45 years after that, an unusual view of Ruskin's model of all perfection, the Ducal Palace. I was temporarily marooned in Venice at the start of the lockdown in March 2020, when all the flights were being cancelled. And unnerving though this was, it was the greatest delight to be able to walk through a deserted city and to spend time at Ruskin's fig tree angle of the palace without having to struggle through crowds. Next, please. So, Robert, ending with an image of your magisterial work, Ruskin on Venice, I salute you on the occasion of your Lifetime Achievement Award from the Ruskin Society of North America. And I thank you also for your friendship and hospitality over the years. But since this is in no way a valedictory salute, and you are certainly not the retiring type in all senses of the word, I look forward to hearing about future projects. Many congratulations to you, and love from Sarah.
Well, thank you very much. Wonderful, and the visuals were terrific. I cut my eye teeth on Ruskin on The Argument of the Eye. It's such a wonderful book. Decades later, it's still a deeply wonderful book and highly recommended to anybody who hasn't read it as yet. He is the author of so many important books on Ruskin. Ruskin in Venice, what did she call it? Magisterial. There couldn't be a better word to describe it. I have it, I have read it, and I think it is wonderful. It's one of the great Ruskin books. It's full of photographs that are absolutely spectacular of the places Ruskin knew and loved and hated when he was spent so much of his time in Venice. So we've heard from all four of our speakers now, and what we traditionally do in these Ruskin Society of North America events is at the end of the tributes by the people who've been invited to speak, we allow the recipient himself, in this case, Robert Hewison, of course, to have his own 5 minutes on the stage to say whatever he would like to those of us who've assembled here to honor and feel great tribute and thanks to him for his lifetime service to Mr. Ruskin and his work. Robert, if you are there and ready to go, let's hear what you have to say.
Well, I look ridiculous. Technical problems mean that I'm speaking on a camera, on my phone camera. But first of all, let me say to you, Jim, how much I appreciate the effort that has gone into this, and indeed for the plaque, which arrived 2 days ago, and of which you've seen an image. And I won't produce another one because I'm not in my usual room for technical reasons. So, Jim, thank you very much indeed. And indeed, congratulations on the formation of the Ruskin Society of North America, which didn't exist at all when I got started. Though I'm delighted that also the Ruskin Art Club of Los Angeles, which goes back to 1888, is also taking part in this session. As to my four speakers, well, they are indeed close friends of mine. I know them through different ways. I'm trying to think. Dinah, of course, and I were part of that small group of Oxford scholars, I suppose we were scholars, certainly Dinah is, who began the Ruskin revival in the 70s. Howard, of course, is immensely important to my life because of my association with Brantwood and the job I have there as a trustee. I am immensely proud of Stuart Eagles. He talks as though I had lots and lots and lots of students. Unfortunately, I feel very few, but he is the one who has really carried through. And if you consider the fact that when I first got him interested in Ruskin, he could still see, and now he is almost totally blind. His work, I think, is an absolute miracle of scholarship. And Sarah Quill has just been a friend and she lives near me and has always had this very important role as a photographer and an important role within, say, Venice, and indeed in the various Ruskinian activities that we're still promoting. Whether I write any more, well, that's another question. I think at the age of 81, one occasionally thinks, well, I might have said enough. But anyway, what I do feel, however, is that Ruskin himself is completely undyed, unfinished. We have now, at least 2 generations of Ruskin scholarship since the revival began. And I can see that there is the potential for a 3rd or a 4th generation, because there is still vast quantities of original work to be done on Ruskin, particularly his work in the field of natural science. Not only that, Ruskin is the only Victorian who, to my mind, lives today and has something to say about today. So all the various groups that are associated with Ruskin, through Ruskin Today, through the American societies, through the Guild of St. George, all these have an immediate point which isn't just about scholarship, though I agree that is very, very important, but actually making at least some of his ideas, not all of them, I'm not of his political persuasions, making some of his ideas as relevant now, in fact, more relevant now when we face climate change than they were when he started writing. And I think we all, as Ruskinians, have to keep that in mind while nonetheless obeying the correct ancient rules of scholarship. So thank you all very, very, very much for what you've said.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. Tyson, could you put up the plaque one more time for us? This is the plaque that we have made every year for the recipient of the reward. I have a fellow downtown in Geneva, New York. We call it the other Geneva, who does a very nice job, as you can see. I love the von Herkimer portrait on the left of Mr. Ruskin. And here's Robert's picture that he sent to me, which he doesn't think much of, but I think I agree with those of you who said that it's really a lovely picture of him. We are deeply honored that you have accepted the award this year, Robert, and deeply honored to have had our 4 speakers who've paid you wonderful, wonderful tribute and much deserved tribute for all the work you've done. We now, at this point, normally, and so this is the moment, we officially bestow the award of the recipient of the Ruskin Lifetime Achievement Award on Robert Hewison for the year 2024. Thank you so much for what you've done for us. Thank you so much for what you may still yet do for us. And even if you don't, as you said, you've done a lot, and I don't know whether it's enough, but it's certainly a lot. And thank you so much for being with us. So all of those things part of our tribute today. I did leave out something very important. The first Slade Professor of Fine Art at Oxford was John Ruskin. And one of the times that I was in England with our dear friend, now departed Van Akenburd, we went to Oxford, and the appointed Slade Professor of Fine Art for the year was Robert Hewison. And that was the year of the great Ruskin Turner and the Pre-Raphaelites show that was in London and was in the Lake District as well. And I remember Van and I made a special point. It was in a local museum not too far away from Lancaster. We made a point to go and have a good look at the paintings. And one of the wonderful things was we went to have a look at the paintings, careful look at the paintings. And while we were there, who showed up at the exhibit itself? We didn't know he was coming, was Robert Hewison. So we had the great delight of not only being in the show that Robert had so much to do with, we had the great delight of having Robert walk us around the paintings and tell us about each one and why it was so critically important to have it hanging in the show. Robert, you have been an inspiration to us all, and you continue to be. Anybody who's not read The Argument of the Eye, get it. Anybody who's not seen his wonderful book, Ruskin on Venice, get it. These are fabulous, fabulous contributions to the field. We are in the midst of a special set of Ruskin scholars, and thanks to them all. I want to thank the board of the Ruskin Society of North America, all are members of which who voted unanimously to give this award to Ruskin. To Robert. I want to thank Tyson for his technical help. I want to thank Gabe Meyer. Gabe Meyer is the estimable executive director of the Ruskin Art Club of Los Angeles and a member of the board of the Ruskin Society of North America, and as well, just a tremendous supporter of Ruskin work in the world as it goes on. Thank you all so very much. This is a moment for anybody who wishes, who's in the audience tonight, if they want to make a special comment before we sign off, this would be the time to do it. So I'm opening the floor after all these thanks. There's Robert right in front of you, looking wonderful, wonderfully fit, and even ruddy, I would say ruddy.
Flush.
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 In any event, thanks again. Anybody wish to say anything, you now have the floor to do so.
Sure.
Tyson will activate your phones.
Yeah, I just want to point out, this is Gabe Meyer, point out that everyone should notice Jim's cravat. He's inspired by the Herkimer portrait. Jim
It's
is
a blue
wearing
cravat.
Right, a blue cravat, not quite as blue as Ruskin's, but
That's right.
But blue nevertheless. Just a comment, just like there's so many others of you. The Argument of the Eye was one of the first books I read about Ruskin, and like so many others, I've been grateful for this blessing ever since. By then, 25 years ago, there were dozens of studies available to inform and bewilder the newcomer to Ruskin. What I found in Ruskin's study, as I think we all have found, was an orientation to the whole of Ruskin, and that proved in my case to be so really invaluable. That Ruskin's work in all its myriad forms constitutes first and last a search for what it means to see. In addition, I found Robert's judicious temperament and his profound good sense so on full display in his writings on Ruskin, made the reader trust him. And I've always trusted Ruskin, Robert's judgment on the many vexed questions in the Ruskin heritage. While Robert always ably argued the case for Ruskin's importance, he's never failed in a long and productive career to let Ruskin be Ruskin. Ruskin, unedited as he is, with rough edges and quirks, as well as towering insights. Insights, he notes, that were all part of a process, a living process that was always evolving. Robert delivered our Ruskin Art Club Ruskin lecture in the bicentennial year in 2019. And the two of us got to know each other during that time, tooling around Los Angeles, visiting libraries and galleries, and treating ourselves to nonstop conversations about Ruskin for several really memorable days. More recently, Robert and his wife Erica hosted me and my research assistant during a stay in the UK in 2022, when the round of breakfasts and leisurely dinners and Ruskin continued. So congratulations on the award, Robert, and a deep gratitude for your friendship. And continue.
Thank you, Gabriel.
I just like to add my thanks to Robert. I first met you, well, the first time I ever saw you, actually, it was in 2001 in London, the Locating the Victorians conference. It was really the first big conference. I was a graduate student, first big conference I had done. I met Dinah for the first time then too. I was in awe that these two Ruskin scholars that I had been reading and studying, I met Dinah in the flesh. I saw you give the keynote. I was really just overcome by this. And a few years later, I was put in touch with you by another Ruskin scholar, Alan Davis, who is also very admirable Ruskin scholar. And I remember writing an email to you. I think I was asking for a copy of one of your lectures. And I'm pretty sure that I wrote a pretty awestruck email to you because I was still very, very much very self-conscious in writing to a scholar that I admired so much. And over the years, I've met you, in various places and Ruskin-related events. You've helped me out in so many ways, both through your work and, through correspondence. And you are really, as everyone has said, you are just such an important figure in the Ruskin world and such a really generous, kind-hearted, knowledgeable scholar and person. And so it has been my pleasure and an honor to know you. And I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for me, but for Ruskin studies more broadly.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah is the co-founder of the Ruskin Society of North America with me a few years ago. And so it's a delight to have her comments as part of this. Robert, I want to take a moment because this is our window for doing this sort of thing. I want to take a moment simply to ask you a question. I run a website, as I think some of you know, called Why Ruskin. And I'm trying to, the point of the website is to get people to understand why Ruskin is so important in the modern world. But in any event, we have Robert on the line right now, and I would like to ask Robert what is to me a very important question. Why have you devoted so much of your life to this old Victorian guy? I mean, I know the answer for myself, but I would love to hear your answer because you've done so much and so in so many different ways over all these years. So for you, Robert, why Ruskin?
Because I love him.
Yes. Of course.
And that's all. I encountered him in a very odd way through being commissioned to write a television program of the Ruskin Whistler trial. And being a young, trendy young man, I sold it as this wonderful man Whistler who was avant-garde and terrific, and Ruskin as this complete fuddy-duddy. But when I started doing the actual research, I quickly realized that, well, frankly, Whistler was a lightweight, and that Ruskin was so important that, in fact, I then went back to university. I hadn't been a serious student in my first degree in history, I think. And but I went back while working for the BBC at the same time, and I went back and studied Ruskin for 3 years. And that was really when my brain matured, if you like. And it was that which has kept me working on Ruskin, though you have been kind enough to acknowledge that I don't just work on Ruskin, which I think is healthy, to work on Ruskin really for the rest of my life.
Oh, good. Thank you so very, very much. Stu Eagles, to me, summed it up with one phrase in his commentary. He said, we all, and I mean all of us who are here today and many others who are not, we all owe you a great debt of gratitude. Hopefully this has paid a little of it back. We acknowledge the debt, and we are so thankful for all of your wonderful help and enthusiasm in keeping us on the Ruskin Road. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. Anybody else have anything to say quickly?
I just have one thing.
Yes, go ahead. Oh, there's Bob.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Robert. And
hi, Bob.
Everyone. I've only had the honor of meeting Robert once, and that was during the trip that Jim and Nicholas Friend organized England for us to various Ruskin sites, and Robert gave a little keynote speech at the Randolph. He may remember that. He may remember that there was a little pin that was given out at the time, and Robert actually pinned my little pin on, and another Canadian, Wendy Ward, who was there at the time. So I've been pinned by Robert at one point. Everybody's been talking about Robert's book, The Argument of the Eye. This is my copy. I don't know whether it will show up enough. It's up here somewhere. Not going to show maybe, but this copy once belonged to Mary Lutyens. Robert signed it. So it says, with very best wishes and many thanks for your help, Robert Hewison, September 76. So I treasure this copy of the book. And congratulations on the award, Robert.
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you very
Bob Knight
much.
is another one of the board members of the Ruskin Society of North America.
Jim, if I may, I happen to have, you can all see this, if I can get this in the camera angle. Hold on a minute. There we are.
There it is.
There is the pin that Bob was speaking about.
Well,
I think Bernard has had his hand up for a while.
Bernie, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted simply to say that I had the opportunity for a conversation over the course of several hours during Professor Hewison's visit to Los Angeles. And I wanted to thank him. I found him in all things to be a beautiful conversationalist, a superb raconteur, a fine mind, and a gracious spirit. And I'm grateful for that conversation.
thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you. And thanks again to everyone. Anybody else want to say something quickly at the end?
Can I say just something?
Emma.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, from Venice. Hello, Robert.
Oh, Emma.
This is Emma.
Emma.
This is Emma from Venice. Hello,
Hi, Emma.
everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all. Venice has been mentioned as one of your love, if I can say so, together with Ruskin. And so I want from Venice, thank you on the behalf of the city and of all the colleagues that are working and trying to work here in Venice. So thank you very much, Robert. And we wait for you as all of you in Venice, hopefully soon.
Soon. Prego.
Soon.
Prego.
Bye.
Next year in Venice.
Yes.
Thanks so much, everybody. Tyson, thanks again for all your work. Gabe, everybody in LA, thank you very much. See you next year.
Lovely to see you all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Right.